Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here today. Oh, that was very sing-songy. Sorry, that's not normally what I do. Up on the grooming stand today, we have Miss Lotus Flower. And Lotus Flower is feeling rather ornery today, so this ought to be fun. She is in heat, which when it comes to goats in heat means absolutely nothing to the humans. But for her, she is in a foul mood. She gave me such a hard time doing her hooves, and she's usually my favorite goat to groom because she's so docile, so relaxed, usually very easy, and I have her on and off the stand in a few minutes. In fact, I was going to open this with, hey, this is going to be a really short video because she's going to be so quick to groom. And then I took a look at her and said, oh, no, actually, she's not going to be very quick to groom. So this might be a longer video than planned. And that means it's going to be hotter than planned when I'm done. It is hot today. I wanted to groom them yesterday when it was going to be a bit cooler. But yesterday, even though the temperature was cooler, it was more humid, which made it feel more miserable than the heat today, which is a bit drier since we had some storms roll through. So anyway, this is the first round of our non-Meet the Goats grooming. You've already met Lotus and heard her story and listened to her legacy here on the farm. So I don't have much else to tell you in that sense, which means that today is the first episode of Grooming and Rambling, which means I'm going to talk about I don't know what. And I don't have pre-prepared topics. I don't have speeches. I don't have a script because, honestly, don't have time to write scripts, let alone have any interest in writing scripts. What I do have is a goat on the stand who's mad at me, and a microphone and a camera and nothing better to do while I'm standing here working on some of these massive tangles she put in herself. You'll see a matching one to the one I'm working on now on her other side when I get to that side. It won't take more than a minute or two to get through it, but she's like, I guess she's been rubbing on the fence. And I guess that's one of the topics today is herd dynamics, because my herd dynamics have changed significantly. I sent to a new home her mother, Lotus's mother, Jezebel. You've met Jezebel before. Jezebel and Lotus have been together since Lotus was born. Both goats were born on my farm. And Jezebel is off to be a part of a foundation herd with Maleficent and Santa. You can hear their stories in their Meet the Goat sections if you want. So Lotus is back in the herd without her mom. Her baby went home at the end of June. No, the end of May. Had to think about that. She went home at the end of May. And she still has her daughter Sock Monkey with her. So don't worry, Lotus is not alone. But that means that the herd dynamic has changed, right? Jezebel was a bit of an older goat. She was one of my first few goats. So she didn't rule the herd, but certainly had a more dominant position in the herd than Lotus. And I think Lotus is working on taking that spot, frankly, because she has been a bit more ornery than she usually is. And she has been definitely making a mess out of her coat, much more so than she normally does. In fact, usually at this time of the year, like I said, this grooming would take me less than 10 minutes total. And instead, I'm working on a couple of tangles here that are going to take me a few extra minutes. And because she's in heat, I'll fair warn you now, when I get to her back end, which is coming up shortly, She's probably going to tap dance, and she might even yell a little bit. I'm not hurting her any more than I am now, meaning I'm not hurting her at all. Let me clarify that so nobody thinks, oh, well, if you're hurting her now, why are you continuing? So that tangle's gone, by the way, and now we're just continuing the rest of her coat until I get to the back where there's a few spots that'll need to be worked on because that's where the urine and the poop comes out, and so the hair always gets a little messy back there. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so as I get to this back end here, don't be surprised to see her tap dance around, fling herself around, yell and scream if she does. She may not, but if she does. And the reason being is she's in heat, she's sensitive, she's not interested in having me work back there because, you know, there's other things happening. And it's the dynamic of me brushing their back ends, the girls anyway, always changes throughout the year. It changes if they're in heat, it changes if they're pregnant, changes depending on how pregnant they are. It changes if they're nursing. So, you know, like 99% of the year, I'm constantly battling a shift in how they prefer their back end work done. And that's just, I mean, you know, if you're in heat, you're in heat. If you're pregnant, well, you're pregnant and you don't want to be touched anywhere sometimes. And if you're nursing, your udder is full or it could be empty. Either way, it's not necessarily the most comfortable feeling. And then once you're not nursing and you're drying up, your udder could be sore. It might be more full than it should be until the milk dries up. So you just got all sorts of things going on with these does when it comes to grooming their back end. So yes, I expected a little bit more protest from her because she gave me such a fit doing her hooves, but she's actually being pretty good. I shouldn't say anything. I'll curse myself and suddenly she'll be miserable and terrible, which would typically be par for the course. So that's what's going on with her grooming and why it's taking a little bit longer than I expected. Not a huge deal. So anyway, it is the heat of the summer. It is like, you know, we've had summer solstice. The days are actually getting shorter, which sort of stinks. They're certainly not short by any means, but they're getting shorter. I'm sure you can hear the guineas out there yelling. I really like that noise. I don't know if everybody else does, but I do. And, you know, we're in just, I'll call it maintenance mode right now, right? Everybody's been groomed and caught up with their spring grooming. What I'm working on back here is, like I said, just where dirt and moisture builds up because it's the back end and that's where the waste product comes out, urine and poop. And, you know, as much as does like to be neat and not urinate on themselves, they do. They can't help it, especially when you have hair this long, especially when it's been raining or muddy or anything else. You know, the back end is where it gets moist and moisture makes knots, and that's all. Just working through that. I've almost got it done already. Of course, there's always fur flying and always an interesting prospect of how long I will last before my allergies kick in. So this side is done. And if you've been here with me for the beginning and the Meet the Goat series, you'll know that, you know, those spring cleanup groomings take much, much longer than these groomings. And these groomings are really maintenance groomings. They are intended to keep that coat not tangled, not messy, easy to work through, and they should be fast. They should be relatively easy to do on the goat and easy to do on me. And so hers was a little bit. You'll see when I come around to the next side that there's that middle section where she's been clearly rubbing on fences. coming around. Sorry for the noise. I'm moving my hair collection bucket and coming around to the other side. Now, before I get started, let's see, because I don't think you can see it on camera, but let me show you what I'm talking about when I say she's got a tangled mess here. Look at this. This is a tangled mess. This is not a tangled mess. I don't know why she's been rubbing on the fence. Well, I told you why I think she is, and it's the herd dynamics. I think that'll shift a little bit. But it really is interesting to me, if nothing else, because like I said, she's typically my favorite goat to groom. She's so simple. She's so easy. She's so well behaved. Today, not so much. So the other thing I thought I'd talk about a little bit today while I'm thinking about it is, and I'm surprised none of you have called it out in the comments. You guys are so kind. You see me wearing the same thing every time I groom a goat. And it's essentially my uniform, right? It's performance gear, pants and top, not exactly the most flattering thing, for my body, but I'm not here to be a beauty queen. If I was, I'd actually do my hair instead of having what's going on with it now. I'd put on makeup, which clearly is never going to happen, and certainly not in this heat. So yeah, I wear the same thing every time I groom, and there's two reasons for that, right? It is performance gear, so it protects me from the sun a little bit. It's got UV protection. It moisture wicks, so while I'm sweating, and I am sweating, believe you me, it is hot. You can't really see it because it's wicking away the moisture and not just getting wet and heavy like a cotton t-shirt might, or Lord knows, a pair of jeans. So yes, you're going to see me in the same outfit for most of the summer. You will see me in this outfit probably most of the fall, depending on how our fall goes. And then in the winter, it gets covered up with coveralls and, some stuff to keep me warm. There's a reason for it, though, and the reason is multiple. One is because of the weave, right? The performance, that dry fit weave of it, it keeps all of the dirt and grime and poop that comes flying off the goats from getting embedded in my clothes, and it just makes it easier to launder. And that's important because I do a lot of laundry. And I don't want to deal with having to de-stain my clothes or, work mud and poop out of my clothes. With this gear, it really just brushes right off, and I can do that before I even get to the house. Second is it hides the sweat. Yay. And third is it's actually a bit impervious to the bugs. It's not perfect. I still can pick up a tick from time to time, but it's harder for the tick to get a foothold on this type of fabric. It's a little bit harder for them to get into it because it's the pants are a little bit snugger, meaning closer to my ankles. I'm also wearing my muck boots, which are, knee high and making my feet just absolutely swelter. But at the same time, again, protection, comfort. They've got a good base for me standing here doing this. So that's the gear I wear, and I wear the same gear all the time. What about when I'm not grooming? Well, then I'm wearing whatever I've got on my body, right? And it really kind of depends on what I'm planning to do. If I'm coming down to do chores morning or evening, morning, I'm in my pajamas. That's just what it is. I get up, I roll out, I'm in my pajamas. After work, I might be in my work clothes. If I'm in, dress pants, I will probably change into something different before I head down. But if I'm wearing jeans to work, well, now the jeans become farm jeans. And that's because I'm not doing heavy lift, messy stuff, right? I'm just either filling water buckets or checking on things or, the standard, I'll call it light lift stuff. I'm not cleaning stalls. I'm not grooming goats. So that's the the chore outfit, right? It's frankly whatever's on my body. Second, not second. I don't even know why I said second. It means nothing. So then, you know, you see the grooming outfit, right? And then there's the work stuff. And I don't really have work gear. Farm husband has work gear, and you know he has work gear that protects his body from machinery, you know, and other things like that. He has performance gear as well, but his work gear is a little bit more heavy duty. It's a little bit more geared toward, you know, grease stains, protecting yourself from a drill or a saw or something slipping, right? So he has that. I don't really go with that. And part of the reason is I'm the one that has to do the laundry. And Lord knows I don't want to do 5 outfits a day, right? Like I just don't. So what I use is coveralls. Also, not exactly the most flattering, certainly not sexy in the least. But they are the perfect blend, right? So I can throw a coverall on, and I have 3 versions of my coveralls. I have my summer coveralls, which are really lightweight and more gardening-ish type level of coveralls. I have my Midland coveralls, which are definitely heavier duty, much warmer, but not winter. And then I have my winter coveralls, which are insulated, thermal, right? I look like the, you know, baby with the baby starfish walking around with them on, and I always feel like baby Huey, but they're warm as heck. So coveralls do a couple of things for me. One, it means that if I need to do messy work and it's not hot and sweltery, I can throw on my coveralls over whatever I'm wearing, and then whatever I'm wearing is clean, and my coveralls don't necessarily need to be washed every time because they're coveralls that stay on the farm. So, you know, I can do them a little bit less frequently than clothing. So that helps my laundry situation. 2 is, you know, they're, regardless of weight, right? Summer weight, mid-weight, heavyweight, or winter weight, they're protective. They provide yet another barrier from bugs, from, you know, thorns, from everything else. And I mentioned on one of my meadow walks that I wasn't wearing my coveralls, and so I couldn't go out on a walk. And that's exactly what I mean, right? Like I could wear my coveralls and go trompsing through the thorns, and I wouldn't feel a thing. They wouldn't get to my skin. They wouldn't break through the coveralls. So that's my preference of what to wear. So there you go. There's the whole routine of farm gear. Boots, I am a muck. Actually, they are Muck is the brand. I am a Muck boot all the way. I like my pink and purple camo because, you know, I have to have a little bit something fancy, right? And I actually get them through Amazon. And I know, you know, that's a whole nother debate whether Amazon is the big evil or not. But I do get them through Amazon. They last me 2 to 3 seasons easily, and I wear them every day, year round. They are technically rated for winter, so in the summer they are a bit hot. But it's just my preference to have that higher, heavier boot. They're more comfortable for me to wear and walk in. I did try low ankle boots for summer a couple of years actually, and I just didn't enjoy them as much. They rubbed, you know, they chafed. They just didn't work for me. That doesn't mean they won't work for you or for anybody else. In fact, they work for a lot of people. They just didn't work for me. So what I do is I monitor Amazon pricing for these boots, and I use an app to do that. The app I use is Camel. It's not really an app, it's a browser extension where you can put items on what they call a drop list. You can set a threshold, and it'll send you a notification when the price drops to below the threshold you set. If you don't set any threshold, it'll send you a notification every time the price drops by like a penny. So you probably want to set a threshold. So I keep an eye on them, and when they drop, you know, below $100 and I'm going to be due for another pair, I pick them up, And then I have them for when these fall apart. And these are in season 3. I know you can't see them. And they are falling apart. They're no longer waterproof. The seams have split. But again, I wear them every day, multiple times a day, on and off. I wear them for morning chores, for evening chores, for afternoon chores. I wear them on the weekend for all the work and stall cleaning and everything else I do. They go through their paces. So if they make it 3 years, I'm happy with that. I've tried other brands. They didn't last as long. They weren't as comfortable. This is just my jam. This is what works for me. All right, so total farm gear. The other thing that is part of my farm gear routine, and has always been, is my phone. Now I try and grab the microphone if I remember, but the phone is always with me, and that's for 2 reasons. Has nothing to do with videos, although that's a nice little side effect now that I'm doing videos. But the phone is always with me because I might need it to look up something, right? What if I came down to the barn and I found a goat that was ill, right? That suddenly needed to be medicated. I might not know the dosage off the top of my head. In fact, I can guarantee you I won't know the dosage off the top of my head. And I will need to look that up. And I don't want to have to run back to the house to get a phone or to get the computer. Having the phone with me just makes that a little bit more convenient. So it's another part of the goat gear I should have mentioned. Needs pockets. Has to have pockets. Lots of pockets. Pockets for stuff, but definitely a pocket for my phone. Second reason that I have the phone with me is there have been times that I've needed to call Farm Hubby or call somebody in for reinforcements. Often that's for a rescue more so than a problem with our animals, meaning, like they, if you watch the groundhog story, right? Honey, I need you. We've got a groundhog that needs rescued. I could shout. Again, I could run back to the house, but usually time is of the essence. And if I can pick up the phone and make a phone call, absolutely the way to go. And then last but not least, from a reasoning perspective, is just emergencies in general. If I come down and I see something that requires veterinary intervention, again, time is usually of the essence. If I have my phone here, I can take video, I can take pictures, I can get in contact with my vet. And it's all right here rather than me having to run back and forth to the house. So that's another aspect of the farm gear. Now, I noticed in a couple of my videos, and I'm noticing it, I'm doing it now too, you're seeing me sort of rub my nose, which is getting itchy with all the fur. And it's probably not the most attractive thing on the camera, so let me address that as well. I am highly allergic to animals, dust, dander, pollen, trees, grass. When I was in my early 20s, no, probably my teens, I was allergy tested and I reacted to the world, everything. Everything they tested me for, I reacted to. I did allergy shots for years. They really didn't do anything for me. I now take, under guidance of my doctor, I take a specific, excessive dose of allergy medication, both morning and night. And still when I'm standing out here and things are blowing around and I'm really driving it up, it is making my allergies flare up. My allergies flare up in sinuses. I either get congested or I get a runny nose or I get an itchy nose. And during grooming, it tends to be an itchy nose. During some of the walks that I've been doing, especially the ones in the spring, it was more of a runny nose. And sort of in the fall, you'll actually see it'll become more of a congested nose. Happy day! So that is what I'm doing and why I keep pushing my nose against my sleeve. It's a terrible habit, but you got to remember that normally I'd be alone in the barn, nobody watching me, and frankly, I just couldn't stand it if I tried to not address the itch. while I was talking. I would be absolutely miserable, and I can't, it itches and it needs to get scratched. So there you go. That's why I do that. And then I guess as I finish this up and doing true confessions, I don't know how this ended up being true confessions of what I do, but here's where we are, and that's why it's Goat Ramblings. I've had a couple of people ask me over the years, well, what do you do to go to the bathroom if you're in the barn for so many hours? And the normal person answer is, well, I go back to the house and I use the bathroom and the facilities. And it's not that far, and I can do that. But remember what I just said. A lot of times I'm in coveralls, I've got layers on, I've got boots on, all that has to come off before I can go in the house. And I'm surrounded by 19 acres of woods that are mine, they're private, they're owned. If you ever camped, you know how to go to the bathroom outside? Well, that's what I do. That's just the reality of it, right? It's fast, it's easy, I've got things to do, and I'm not going to get dressed and undressed 100 times just because nature called. Nature is right here. Okay, so all of that I worked through, and she was actually very good, so sorry I gave you a warning for no reason, is done. She is free and clear, whoops, except for right here, of any tangles, any knots, anything that might be getting worse if I weren't addressing it now, except for this one little piece. So we're going to address that. And then we're going to spray her down with some detangling spray. And doing that, it's like a leave-in conditioner / detangling spray. It helps keep their coat in nice shape, number one. And number two, it helps keep any of these tangles that may form easy enough to come out that they don't hurt and they don't take me hours of working on them. So I'm probably blocking this, but I don't know if you can see this tiny little tangle here that I'm working on. What I'm doing is I start to just get all of the loose hair out of that tangle. And it's a tangle around what looks like a piece of hay. And that's typically how it happens. They get a piece of hay or they get a piece of bedding, a strand starts to wrap around it, then more strands wrap around it, and boom, you have a tangle. So I'm loosening everything up. I'm using a slicker brush. It's dirty, yes, because the goats are dirty. And it's always going to be dirty. And yes, I try and clean them. But that's all I'm doing is really loosening up whatever it is that it's wrapped around until it's gone. I'm not pulling out hair. I'm not rubbing on them. You know, I'm not doing anything that's going to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. And then I use my detangler. It's a detangler leave-in conditioner. And I go over her one more time just to get that in. And it does make the coat a little bit damp, which in this heat probably doesn't, feel bad to them. But again, the purpose is really to maintain the coat in between groomings and help during groomings make sure that I can get everything out without making the goat uncomfortable. And that is the end of our grooming session with Lotus. That was supposed to be quick and painless and was not. I hope you are having a fabulous day wherever you are in the world. I hope that it is beautiful, sunny, and cool. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Be kind. Thanks for being a part of my community, and I will see you at the next one. Bye for now.